Hello, my country. Well, as Parliament returned today with new Liberal leader Susan Lee leading the opposition, it was revealed most Australians don't know who Susan Lee is. And when I say most Australians, I mean 100% of Australians surveyed by the Daily Telegraph. Not one of 100 people shown a photo of the Liberal leader could correctly identify her. The closest anyone came was a bloke who guessed she was Anthony Albanese's wife, which was awkward. Now, to be fair, most Australians don't follow politics too closely, and only 53% of people were able to correctly identify the Prime Minister. So perhaps it's not Susan Lee's fault that she's more anonymous than a Greens economic policy. Joining me now is the man 100% of Sky News viewers correctly identify as M.Canavan. Matt, thanks for being on the program. Does this survey say more about Susan Lee or about the Australian public?
Well, I don't think it says anything particularly negative about the Australian public. I mean, as you say, most people don't follow politics. I think it's actually not a bad thing that we live in a country where politics doesn't affect everybody's lives on a day-to-day basis. And look, the next 3 years is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Obviously, Susan will have to get herself known. The Australian people have to put forward a strong criticism of the Labor government. That won't be too hard. And also put forward a vision about how to go for the future. So, look, there's a long way to go here. I'm sure, yes, so you're very kind, saying Sky News viewers would know who I am. Maybe they would. A lot of the general public wouldn't. But now that Susan has the position of leader, a lot more Australians will get to know her. And that's a challenge always for any leader. But it's also an opportunity for her and the Liberal and National parties to put forward a better option for the Australian people.
Yeah, she's certainly got a lot of work to do. I just don't understand how you can have been in politics more than 20 years and 100 out of 100 people surveyed don't know who you are.
Well, I think a lot of it is down to the pictures. You know, I mean, people don't necessarily remember the faces and that. It's hard to get yourself out there these days. I mean, it's a very fragmented media market now compared to what it was 20 or 30 years ago. You've got lots of different forms of media, social media. So look, I mean, I am focused right now on defending the jobs in my communities that are at risk from Labor's lack of management of our energy policy systems, particularly in our manufacturing sector. I'm focused on ending this madness of net zero emissions, which is one of the major contributions to the risks to those jobs, as well as costing an arm and a leg for all Australians. Look, if we want to turn things around, we want to win back the support, or enough support from the Australian people to win government, we've got to stay fairly focused on them. So I'm not focused on Susan Lee, I'm not focused on David Littleproud, I'm not focused on any of those things. I remain 100% focused on delivering better results for the people I represent. It's a great honour to serve as a Senator for Queensland. My job is to fight for those Queenslanders and all Australians.
Don't get me wrong, I hope she succeeds, but boy, there's a lot of work to do. Now, it may come as a surprise to many of our viewers that Australia has a First Nations ambassador who's been charged by the Albanese government with implementing a First Nations approach to foreign policy. And exactly what that is even harder to identify than, well, Susan Lee. But the First Nations ambassador has certainly been busy. He and his staff have spent $750,000 on travel in just 2 years. Penny Wong has justified the expense. She said, and I quote, "The Albanese government is doing everything we can to strengthen our ties with the Pacific, and that includes involving First Nations people." Except the records show our First Nations ambassador only spent 33 days in the Pacific. The rest, a comfy 94 days wandering around the US, Paris and Geneva, because nothing says First Nations policy like croissants, Capitol Hill and lakeside fondue. Matt, what do you make of this?
Look, I think the most disappointing aspect of this is that what does it do to help the Aboriginal people here in Australia? There are lots of Aboriginal people that suffer under the scourge of domestic violence, assault, family breakdown, drugs out of control in many communities, drugs and alcohol, I should say, and in many communities across Australia. And I would have thought the focus of the Australian government should be on them. It should be on not Western Europe. But what does a First Nations foreign minister do for those people? I just hope we can, and I'm probably hoping against hope, but we need to return to a practical Indigenous policy. The voice has been rejected by the Australian people. That turned out to be a complete dead end in Indigenous policy ever since the government's been spinning its wheels. But it's not. It's going to be very hard to fix the problems that exist in Indigenous Australia. But it's not hard to identify what we should be trying to do. What we should be trying to do is helping young Indigenous children stay in school and have better future economic opportunities. What we should be doing is promoting and supporting the great Indigenous businesses. And there are lots of fantastic Indigenous businesses in my part of the world. That was a cornerstone of the former coalition's Indigenous policy. We should be seeking to create more jobs and opportunities in and around regional Australia and particularly Indigenous communities. That should be the focus. We're not going to solve those issues by travelling to other countries. The issues are here in Australia. And so don't fly over Indigenous communities, fly to them.
Yeah, I reckon the $700,000 spent on flying the First Nations ambassador and his team around the world could have been well spent in, I don't know, say Alice Springs, fixing a few practical issues there. I want to talk about former Qantas boss Alan Joyce. He's warned that business leaders need to be wary of Jim Chalmers' upcoming Productivity Summit, recalling the government's 2022 Jobs and Skills Summit. He said it dawned on him halfway through that talkfest that the entire thing had been orchestrated and outcomes preordained. He's told the Australian Financial Review that those invited to take part in the Productivity Summit should seek assurances from the government they weren't going to be blindsided. Matt, does he have a point?
Well, definitely the first Jobs and Skills Summit was a complete failure. Keep in mind at that summit, the government did not invite the Productivity Commission to come along, and I'm not being a Monday expert here. I said that at the time. I wrote a column at the time saying that why isn't the Productivity Commission invited here? One of the biggest issues is productivity, and the government did nothing on that in its first term. And look, I welcome the fact that belatedly it's talking about it. But perhaps in regards to Alan Joyce's warning, it would be even better if the government did have a preordained outcome, because right now they seem to have no plan. There seems to be absolutely no economic agenda in regards to productivity or anything else. This particular summit seems like it's going to be let 1,000 hares run. And there are just hares running all over the place at the moment about increasing the GST, putting a tax on the mining industry, reducing the amount of working hours that people can have. I don't know how that will people help pay their bills. But there's all these random ideas coming from left, right and centre, and the government seems to have no control of the agenda. That should be concerning for all Australians, because in the first term of the Labor government, we have seen our living standards absolutely crash by 8%, more than anywhere else in the world by far. And it would be good. One thing we could perhaps hope for, or wish for, not unreasonably hope for, is a government with a plan. This government doesn't seem to have one.
That's a really good point. Just quickly before I let you go, I want to ask you about a New South Wales Labor government promise to have 126 electric buses built in the state. But planning documents reveal that parts from the Chinese supplier will arrive in Australia fully painted and constructed, and all that will happen in the much-hyped Nowra bus-building hub is the bits will be put together. Matt, calling that manufacturing is like assembling a flat-pack desk from IKEA and calling yourself a carpenter, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I perhaps wouldn't be too negative there. Putting together some of those Chinese-made flat packs can be very difficult, depending on the instruction manuals. They can sometimes be hard to decipher. Look, I don't know. I don't know enough of the details here. It seems like obviously the New South Wales government's not living up to a promise. That's clearly not manufacturing, not what people would expect. But really, I think we need to come back to the real villain here. Is the reason we can't do these things, these basic things anymore, is because we have some of the highest energy prices in the world. And China has lower energy prices than us, even though we send them our energy resources like coal and gas. How have we allowed a situation to emerge where those who buy our energy resources end up with cheaper electricity prices than we have ourselves? It's very simple. How that's happened, we don't use the energy resources. We let them, or we send to them. That should be reversed.
Yeah, absolutely. M.Canavan, it's always a delight to speak with you. Thanks for joining